This is the first of 3 videos I'll be doing in which I'll be outlining information relating to the cardiovascular system. This video I'll be discussing the cardiovascular system during exercise. The 3 main things I'd like you to get from this video are I'd like you to be able to identify the immediate effects of exercise on the cardiovascular system, to identify the short-term effects of exercise on the cardiovascular system, and to be able to describe and define the key effects of immediate exercise on the cardiovascular system. On the board in front of you there, you should be able to see the GCSE grade outcomes for each of those objectives and the level of thinking, the solo level of thinking needed to achieve those objectives. Now, the cardiovascular system is made up of 3 main components. The most important component is obviously the heart. Now, the heart is a muscular pump which is used to push blood throughout the many blood vessels within the body. On the screen in front of you now, you can see a labelled diagram of the heart. Now, for your exam, you don't need to know the key components of the heart. You just need to know how it works and the purpose behind it. For those of you who want to be able to expand on your answers in the exam and to access those A and A star questions, I'd ask you to pause the screen now, draw a picture of the heart and label it. This will just give you a bit more background knowledge to answer those questions. The next 2 components of the cardiovascular system are the blood vessels and the blood itself. In the top right hand of your screen now, you can see the different types of blood vessels. Now, the red blood vessels carry oxygenated blood and the blue blood vessels carry deoxygenated blood. The blood itself is made up of different key components. If you have a look at the bottom left of your screen now, you can see a cross section of an artery. Now, blood is made up of 4 key components. The first component being red blood cells. These move around the body carrying oxygenated blood to the working muscles. The white blood cells are there to fight against infection. And platelets are there if you are injured and you cut yourself or there's a scratch. They rush to the site of the injury and they clot the blood there to create a scab. The blood has 2 main functions in this cardiovascular system. One of them is to supply the body with oxygen and nutrients so they can work. The second one is to remove the waste products such as carbon dioxide from the working muscles. So what happens to the cardiovascular system during exercise? Well, exercise has a number of immediate effects on the cardiovascular system, and you can see those effects on the left hand side of your screen now. The first one being increased heart rate. Exercise makes the body work harder. As a result, the muscles require more oxygen, which means the body needs more oxygen and more nutrients, such as glycogen, to function properly. Oxygen and nutrients are carried to the muscles by the blood. Therefore, the heart has to work faster to pump the blood around the body. This means that the heart rate, beats per minute, increases. As an added extra bit of information, which you do not need to know for your exam, is to bring about the change in heart rate, the body releases a hormone called adrenaline. This changes the heart rate and the blood pressure. It makes the heart beat faster and, among other things, causes glycogen to be released by the liver and blood to be diverted away from the organs to the muscles, which need to work harder during exercise. After eating, more blood is sent to the digestive organs to carry nutrients to the muscles. Adrenaline diverts this blood away from the digestive organs, and this is one reason why it is not a good idea to exercise after eating a large meal. Stressful situations, such as important competition, can also cause adrenaline to be released. The next immediate effect is your blood pressure. Now, your heart makes 2 beating sounds, ba-bum. The first beating sound is called systole and is made by the lower chambers contracting and pushing blood at high pressure into the arteries. The actual sound is caused by the heart valves closing. The second sound is called diastole and is made by the upper chambers contracting, pushing blood down into the lower chambers. During exercise, these sounds get louder, mainly as a result of an increase in blood pressure. You also get an increase in blood pressure. Now, blood pressure is the force exerted by the blood on the walls of the arteries. It increases during exercise because more blood is being pumped around the body, increasing the pressure on the blood vessels trying to keep the blood in. There are two key terms that we use when measuring blood pressure: systolic and diastolic pressure. Systolic blood pressure is the maximum pressure in the arteries when the heart contracts or beats and pushes blood out through the aorta into the body. It rises during activity or excitement as more blood is required by the body. It falls during sleep when the body is at rest. Diastolic blood pressure is the pressure of the blood during the relaxation phase between heartbeats when the heart is at rest. It depends mainly on the elasticity of the arteries and the quality of the vessels. And finally, pulse pressure is the difference between systolic and diastolic pressures. You've just been given lots of information there with some key terms. I'd rewind the video and listen to this over again and make some more detailed notes, maybe jot some questions down as well. Now, the immediate effects of exercise on the cardiovascular system and the body that you can actually see and feel are up on the screen now. Firstly, breathing becomes faster and deeper, and this is so more oxygen can be supplied to the lungs. However fast the heart beats, it cannot carry enough oxygen if the lungs are not being supplied with enough through efficient breathing. Breathing efficiency means removing enough oxygen from the air. The second point is body temperature increases. During exercise, the muscles work and generate heat, which causes body temperature to rise. Now, body temperature is regulated by heat radiating from the skin and water evaporating through sweating. Shivering means the muscles are working to produce heat in order to raise the body temperature. Thirdly, sweating starts and the body requires fluid. As the body temperature rises during exercise, sweating begins. Now, the body tolerates a small rise in temperature, but at a certain point will try to cool down and begin to sweat. Sweat comes out of the pores of the skin and evaporates when it reaches the surface. Energy in the form of heat is needed for it to evaporate, and this comes from the body. As heat is lost, body temperature falls. Salt as well as water is lost through sweating, and this obviously can cause problems. If the conditions are hot, sweating increases and less urine is produced. Salt lost through sweating must be replaced so that the balance of salt in the body stays the same. Otherwise, cramp may occur. Lack of water and salt can result in fainting and collapsing, which in certain sports are not uncommon. For example, long boxing matches in high temperatures. Football, tennis and cycling are all examples of activities where participants need to drink regularly. And finally, muscles begin to ache. In order to work, the muscles need energy and oxygen. Energy comes from food, which is mainly converted to glucose, which is a sugar. Glucose and oxygen are carried to the muscles by the blood, as we mentioned before. Wastes, such as carbon dioxide, are carried away by the blood. This process of getting energy is called respiration, and I'll talk about respiration in more detail in a future video. Now, on the right hand side of the page, you can see a link it up box. The most important structures in oxygen uptake during exercise are something called the alveoli. Topic 1.2.3 contains more information about these, and we'll be looking at that later on in the unit of work. The final point to discuss is lactic acid. Now, lactic acid is a poison. It builds up slowly during exercise, up to 75% of maximum work rate. But during higher intensity work, it builds up in the muscles much more quickly. The reason for this is usually poor training, but it can also be a result of the depletion of glycogen stores in the muscles as a result of massive muscular effort. This might occur, for instance, in extra time of a hard football match, being played in muddy conditions, or maybe if you've been running a marathon. After a while, lactic acid will make the muscles ache. It will eventually cause cramp, and the muscles will stop working. The athlete has to rest while the blood brings fresh supplies of oxygen. Producing energy with oxygen is called aerobic respiration, and producing energy without oxygen is called anaerobic respiration.